At this location, there's another phone in the same location that's traveled from this part of the city to that part of the city to that part of the city. We know they are what we call co-travelers. They know when you log into Facebook. They know when you log into Google, because Google and Facebook will provide this information to governments. And what this means is that guy behind a desk has almost a kind of omniscience. They don't know everything about you, but they know most things about most people at most times. And for the first time in human history, it is both technically and financially possible for governments, even smaller governments now, to track and store nearly complete records of all of our lives. And it's important to understand this isn't science fiction, right? This is happening now. This is actually a for-profit enterprise where you've got companies, private companies that exist in places like Israel that will sell tools for hacking to governments like the government of Mexico that are then abused domestically. Sometimes they might be used properly, but we know that they've been used based on public reporting by a group called the Citizen Lab, working out of a university in Canada, that it was used to spy on journalists that were writing reports that were unfavorable about the spouse of a previous government in Mexico, the head of the Mexican opposition, human rights groups that were investigating student disappearances. And this is just locally, right? This is happening again and again and again in country after country, place after place. It's not about one government. It's about governments. It's about our relation to them, how we understand what they do, how we control it, and how they see us, how they can influence us, and how they can control us rather than the democratic opposite where we control them. The result of all of this, easy access into so many lives by the part of power, again, this is not just governmental, this is also corporate, is that the computers that enable this, the devices that enable this, the applications and programs that enable this, have spread all over the world everywhere. Computers are everywhere, and none of them can be trusted, even those who believe themselves to be in charge of them. I'm a computer engineer who worked for the CIA and the NSA. And no matter what I do, no matter how careful I am, I can make my computer more safe, but I can't make it safe. This is the digital insecurity problem. This is a crisis that is everywhere for everyone, always. And the ones that are most responsible for it are those in government who thought they were being clever by making it easier for themselves to engage in sabotage and espionage and surveillance on the internet. And they went, well, we found this flaw, we found this weakness that allows us to get into the iPhone or this Android phone or a Windows computer, but we won't tell anybody about it because we want to use that as kind of a burglar's key to sneak in and watch the people that we want to watch. And they never stopped to consider that maybe they were making precisely the same activities, that sabotage and surveillance and espionage, easier for their rivals if they just found the same flaws. And these things that we've talked about around the world, electoral influence, manipulation, hacking, all of these problems are routinely being described now by governments as existential threats to our societies. We've got to worry about these other people under these other flags that we don't trust, that we don't like, that we don't control, coming and causing problems for us. And the problems are that we have not made the internet and our devices safe for everyone. Because the only way to protect the only way to protect anyone online, whether it's a power station or, a kid in their bedroom, is to protect everyone. Because the platforms that they use at a business, the platform that a CEO uses, the platform that a child uses, are often the same. But where does this leave us? And so those above us in society know everything about our activities. at the same time that we know almost nothing about theirs. And so what do? How do we restore that ideal of democracy? How do we create a participatory sense of government so that we do not have the rulers and the ruled underneath them, but rather we have the citizens that are partner to government, working together with government rather than merely subject to government, where they tell us what to do and we say yes, okay, or we go to jail. What do we do when the safeguards that we have to control the ways governments apply these systems and corporations apply these systems to our lives break down? Oversight systems where we're supposed to be policing the people that are supposed to be policing us. How do we know when an official abuses their position? How do we know when Facebook abuses their market position? What happens when when the most well-designed systems of checks and balances, just like we might have watchdog processes in a computer that are looking for hackers, that are looking for a process to fail and then restart it, reconnect it, protect us. What happens when those in our governments, in our laws, in our daily lives as we interact with the world around us, fail not on a single point, but they fail comprehensively, not just in a part of government, but all branches of government, not just in a single business like Facebook, but in all the businesses that are competing with them. I think this is where we're forced to rely on what I call democracy's safeguard of last resort. This is the fourth estate, meaning our press, in alliance with whistleblowers, more commonly known as journalistic sources. It is only through journalists working with people who know what's going on but are not normally allowed to say what's going on that we, the public, can understand our world and then vote to express how we want things to be controlled. Unfortunately, we're seeing that the ability of journalists to operate free from interference, even one of what are traditionally considered liberal and open societies like Canada, their ability to operate freely on sensitive stories is being limited. We're seeing more investigations. We're seeing more forms of suppression. We're seeing arrests of journalists. We're seeing arrests of their sources. We see governments like in the United States seeking the extradition of people like Julian Assange, the former editor of WikiLeaks, to put people in prison for the rest of their lives for committing an act of journalism, which not so long ago was not considered a crime. Police and intelligence forces, I think, are increasingly considering investigative journalists to be a kind of threat. And this is a problem. We are the ones they're supposed to be protecting from threats. But we know this is true. This representation, isn't coming from nowhere. This isn't simply my beliefs. Their own classified documents, which were revealed in the wake of the 2013 revelations of mass surveillance, in which I participated, showed that journalists on the matrix of threats, the ranking of dangerous enemies for the intelligence community, journalists were ranked between terrorists and hackers. So they go, oh, well, they're not as bad as terrorists, but they're worse than hackers. Because they went, well, if a hacker gets something, if a spy gets something, maybe they'll keep it to themselves. Maybe they won't tell anybody else. But journalists will tell everybody. And if they know our secrets, oh gosh, it's terrible. We'll have to comply with the law. And I think this should lead us inevitably to consider what kind of world we'll be facing should governments and other powerful institutions actually succeed in countering the threat of journalism. What would that world look like? If we only knew what governments wanted us to know, we wouldn't know very much at all. Think about it. Can you think of a case recently in your country, in your community, in your city, in which the government accidentally or even knowingly violated the law and for fear of consequences, embarrassment, or any other reason, sought to conceal it from the public.